So how do you properly ask the tarot cards a question? Because as we know, one of the most important things when you're reading tarot and getting the correct information depends on how correctly you ask the tarot cards what it is that you want to know. So this is where a lot of people can get caught up sometimes. And I have this experience a lot when I work with clients too. They have this kind of like long-winded question and they're trying to figure out how to explain to you the information that they want. And you're sitting there and you have to kind of really be very detailed about, okay, well, what do they actually want to know based on the story that they're telling me, right? So how do you concisely and correctly ask the tarot cards questions, right? So I think the first thing would be is you have to have a very clear intention, first of all, in order to get the right message. The second thing is you kind of have to really figure out what the nuts and bolts of the question or the overall situation is that somebody wants to know. And if you have a hard time figuring that out, I would go back to asking yourself the question, like, what would make this person feel better? What would be helpful information for this person to have in this situation that will help them make sense of everything, right? And that's how you really start phrasing the questions and really like paring things down. And this is something that my clients have specifically told me that they really appreciate about me, is that they go, I have this thing going on and I don't know how to explain it, but you always know how to pull out what I need and get the right answer. So this is an important part of knowing how to ask your tarot the right questions, right? So that's one part of it. The other part is with the tarot, you can't really be long-winded, right, about the question. You have to think of something like a girl explaining something versus a guy, right? Like guys are very like short and succinct and just, whatever. And girls are more descriptive and they can really describe things and, they describe feelings and sounds and this and that. And so that's a really bad way to start a question, right? You want to be very simple, very like dun, 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 right, when you ask the question, because if it's too wordy, the cards kind of start bouncing all over the place and they don't really know how to get you the exact information that you're asking for because they don't know what you're asking, right? So the last thing that I would probably say that's important when you are trying to really phrase a question to the tarot cards is that you should only be asking the same question one time. I know a lot of times in my personal experience as a tarot card reader is that people, you say things to them and then they don't always listen to actually what you're saying because they're kind of worked up in their emotions and their feels. And sometimes they don't get the answer that they want, or they feel like the answer they're getting is not really helping them make sense of things. And a lot of times that's not necessarily anything you're doing wrong. A lot of times that's just some internal work that somebody needs to do because they're processing a situation that's very heavily emotional to them. And I always tell people too, you can have the answer for something, but sometimes you just have to be okay with not knowing what it is, because sometimes that doesn't always help, right? There's other things that you need to be looking at internally in order to fix that sort of conundrum for yourself. So that's the other thing is you don't want to ask the same question more than once in the same reading. If you want to check like a couple days later or a week later, that's okay because things can change with free will. But if you are continuing to ask the same question, the cards are going to get muddled and confused, and they're going to start giving you a lot of really discombobulated information. They might say yes on this, they might say no on that, and then they might kind of just go everywhere in between. And then you lose your credibility as a reader also because you kind of need to take control over the situation and people are seeing a lot of inconsistencies in what you're saying. So I would also say too, when you're phrasing questions, make sure that you only ask the question one time. If you need to ask it sort of in a different way to get a little different information, then that's a different story. But you don't want to be asking kind of the same question over and over. If you're asking it with another piece of what you've already asked, then that would work. But you don't just want to keep like changing the words around and asking the same thing. So I hope that was really helpful. I hope that helps you guys really figure out how to interpret these things a little bit better and ask really clear and concise questions so that you can get the answers that you want. So until next time, thank you guys so much for watching and have an absolutely beautiful day.